make way for one of our favorites, the former NFL offensive lineman, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Westwood One NFL analyst. He'll be in Buffalo on Saturday night, AFC divisional playoff game between the Ravens and Bills. That's on Westwood One. And he was also on the broadcast for the Colts and Bills wild card game this past weekend. Ross, thanks for joining us. What's the weather forecast in Buffalo?
Yeah, it's going to be cold, Dan, as you might imagine, and they're saying there's a decent chance of snow, now only accumulating an inch or so, but Lamar Jackson already talking about it. He was asked about it yesterday. He said he's never played in snow before. He doesn't want to play in snow. Remember, he's a South Florida kid. So I think I already tweeted this morning, Dan, at Ross Tucker NFL, the first rule of Snow Football Club is never admit that you don't want to be a part of snow football. I mean, it's like Lamar, I think, is a little bit too honest. Like, we know you don't want to play in the snow, man, but it might be snowing Saturday night. So just embrace it and have fun. Can you imagine, by the way, Dan, if it does, a night game in Buffalo, Ravens, Bills snowing? I mean, if it snows Saturday night, it's because God realized it should snow Saturday night.
But I think I would be more concerned about the wind in Buffalo than the snow, because by the time you play, you get going, and I don't think that concerns you as much as the wind would if I'm a quarterback. You tell me, would you be more concerned with the wind in Buffalo if you're the quarterbacks, or if it snows?
Yeah, well, it depends on how much snow, right? I mean, I was up there a few years ago when the Bills played the Colts, and it was like an absolute monsoon of snow the whole time. It was like a blizzard the entire game. So that's a totally different story. It doesn't sound like it's going to be like that. Wind is absolutely more of a factor. Although I'll say this, Dan, the Bills cannot run the football. And Zach Moss now is hurt. Yeah. So if there's any time, I mean, I would argue that the more inclement the weather, right, whether it's wind or snow or whatever, I think that plays into the Ravens' hands. The Ravens, the last 6 games, have had the most rushing yards of any team in a 6-game stretch since the 50s. I mean, they've had more rushing yards the last 6 games than 6 NFL teams had the whole year. Meanwhile, the Bills can't run into lick. So I think the worse the weather, the better it is for the Ravens, quite frankly.
Yeah, I thought that the Ravens were going to be the dangerous team that nobody wanted to face, because it almost felt like, and you've done the research on this, you would know better, something happened with Lamar Jackson where maybe he came to the realization, I need to just go out there and be the guy the previous year. Like, I'm not a pocket passer. I'm never going to be a pocket passer, but I need to go out there and make plays. And we saw that in the game against the Titans. He needed to make a big play. He made a big play, and it changed the complexion of the game. What is it that you've seen from Lamar that's different from, say, the first 3 quarters of the season?
Well, I think part of it is what you said, but I think the other part of it is Greg Roman, the Ravens offensive coordinator. He kind of changed. I think he realized that with no Marshall Yanda and Ronnie Stanley getting hurt up front, their offensive line wasn't as athletic. They're bigger, though. Phillips is like 345, Fluker's 350. So rather than trying to run a zone scheme up front, they're doing a lot of the same backfield action, but it's more gap scheme, which means you don't have to move as much. It's more just downhill. And you know what else, Dan? I know they like Mark Ingram. They realize that J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are better. Yeah. Those guys are just better. Dobbins and Edwards are better. They get more yards, and the scores have been reflected. I mean, they have gone on a stretch, 34-17 against the Cowboys, 47-42 against the Browns, 40 points against the Jaguars. These 2 teams, the Bills and the Ravens, have the best point differential in the NFL over the last 6 games. When people like you have been asking me who might be able to beat the Chiefs, I've said the Bills or the Ravens. Now, the Chiefs, I think, benefit. They're only have to play one of them because they got to play each other first.
We're talking to Ross Tucker, the former NFL offensive lineman, and he'll be on the call with Westwood One with the Bills and the Ravens Saturday night. Ross Tucker Football Podcast. What should the Texans do with Deshaun Watson?
Well, they're not going to trade him. That makes absolutely no sense. They need to first get him to get in touch with them and actually listen to what they have to say. And, I hate to say it, Dan, but I would imagine that they're going to now hire a head coach that is Deshaun Watson approved. I think they'll probably talk to him about it, maybe give him a few names. And if they come down to a guy or two, they're going to probably lean to the one that Deshaun Watson would prefer. He is the most important person in the building.
Yeah.
If you have a top 10 franchise quarterback, they get paid the most by a lot. They're by far the most important. It's crazy to me that he reportedly likes Bieniemy. Dan, they were the only team that the 6 that had openings that didn't request an initial interview with Eric Bieniemy. The only team. And by the way, they asked Deshaun for his feedback. He said Bieniemy, and then they're the only ones that didn't. I mean, it's almost like they went out of their way to say to Deshaun, we don't care what you think. You're the player. You just play. Like, why wouldn't you, Dan, logically, even if you weren't going to hire him, just interview him because your franchise quarterback wants you to?
I wouldn't have given him that power to have a say-so, but you did, therefore you have to listen to him. I don't know if Brady had any input on, I'm going to take less money or spread this out. I'm going to leave it up to Coach Belichick to be able to decide who he wants to bring in. We thought all along, well, that can't be the case. Brady should have a say. And then the more I researched it, the more I found out Brady didn't have a say in who they brought in. Here you're giving Deshaun Watson, who's 25, kind of not veto power, but he's involved in the process there. So Houston created this. They should at least acknowledge, his input here.
Totally agree. And by the way, what you said about Brady and Belichick, I think that's part of the reason why Brady's no longer in New England and in Tampa. I think he just kind of got sick of that. I mean, I think he got sick of taking less, and then they weren't actually getting better players for him. What am I taking less for? And I'm throwing it to an old Edelman and a bunch of guys that stink. Why am I taking less for you to put these guys around me?
What kind of surprises you think you'll see? You got one this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's a surprise, but I think the Ravens are going to win Saturday night, and I think the Bucs are going to beat the Saints. So, look, they're not big spreads. We talked about it on the Even Money podcast. It's like 2.5 and 3. So neither one of these would be shocking, but I just think the Ravens, the way they run the football, I mean, the Colts should have beat the Bills. The Colts were the better team on Saturday. They just screwed it up multiple different ways. Josh Allen played awesome, and the Bills still barely won. Meanwhile, the Bucs are getting back Devin White and Steve McClendon. Brady's playing way better than he was earlier in the year, and I think it's very difficult to beat a team 3 times. So out of the underdogs, the upsets, I'll take the Bucs as well as the Ravens on the road.
Explain to me Aaron Donald and how that, like the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, the game plan you'll have and how it focuses on Aaron Donald.
So what's interesting about that, Dan, is I wonder how effective he's going to be able to be. The reports are that he tore rib cartilage against the Seahawks. That is really painful. I never had that happen, but I've had guys tell me it's more painful than actually if you crack a rib, if you tear that cartilage. And so much, like if you see him, he is so twitchy and he's so explosive and he contorts his hips to try to get the corner on the guards. I don't know if he's going to be as effective as he normally would be. He's a guy, though, I can remember. Do you remember? You probably don't remember Tommy Harris when he played for the Bears. Tommy Harris had like a 2 or 3 year run
Oklahoma,
where he was unreal. I remember playing for the Browns, Dan, and even if we were supposed to slide the protection the other way, I was starting at center. If we were going to go one way, we made a deal. Andruzzi and Kosi Coleman, wherever Tommy Harris was, we were going to double team him. And we all kind of made a pact. That's the pact you have to have with Aaron Donald. You have to have an understanding that even if that's not what you're supposed to do, you better do it. Otherwise, somebody's going to get embarrassed.
You have Jalen Ramsey on the back end, too. So do you just say to Jalen Ramsey, Devontae Adams is your friend? Like you two are going to be together an awful lot the entire game, and then you take your chances elsewhere.
Correct. It's like Hoosiers, and you got to know what flavor gummy is at the end of the game for Jalen. You know what's weird, Dan? I missed on the Rams. I did not think they were going to be good. If you look at their defense, there's no players in the middle. It's Aaron Donald, 20-something million a year, Jalen Ramsey, 20-something million a year, and a bunch of guys making the minimum. But they figured out if you have two top 10 defensive players in the NFL, you can kind of fill in the other pieces as long as you have those two. I was skeptical, but man, it worked. And their D coordinator, Brandon Staley, that guy is a stud. He should be a head coach this year.
Yeah, you're not alone in missing on the Rams because I did too, because I didn't know how good the offense was going to be. Then they get Jalen Ramsey. You got an offensive-minded head coach who then changed over to understanding I'm going to win with defense here and just enough offense. Before I let you go, the Browns and the Chiefs. The Browns win this by doing what?
Running the crap out of the football and playing zone coverage on defense and not giving up anything cheap and deep. But they got the best O-line in football, and Chubb and Hunt are playing at a really high level. They need to try to pound the Chiefs into submission. I think they have a shot. I don't agree with the betting line on that one, Dan, at all. I said that on the Even Money podcast. That is way too many points. I think the Browns have a chance. They've got a good formula, and the Chiefs haven't been able to put anybody away or blow anybody out in forever. So I like the Browns and the points for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah. I like the Browns an awful lot against the Steelers. And so you don't have your coaches and you go in there and, you blow them out. I think if the Browns don't get full of themselves, which they have that capability of doing it, but hopefully Kevin Stefanski back will, make sure that doesn't happen. I think if they do go in there with that game plan, they make it interesting because I have to keep Mahomes off the field as long as possible. And I cannot let any one of those receivers get behind me. And the Chiefs, they let teams hang in there, Ross. I mean, it's a fault of theirs. They do win, but they let you hang around almost as if they're teasing you.
Yeah, two thoughts on that. One is the Browns are also getting their best O-lineman back, Joel Bitonio, their best defensive back. They should be getting back, Denzel Ward. And you're exactly right. You talk to any of these math guys, Dan, the Chiefs had how many games in a row where they won by one score or less? You're going to lose one of those. Like they almost would have been better off if they lost to the Falcons or they lost one of those games earlier. Because if they do that in the playoffs against the Browns or the Bills, Ravens, or whatever, they're going to lose. The odds tell you keep trying to win these one-score games, it's going to go against you one of these times. You're not going to get that break like they did against the Falcons.
Have fun in Buffalo there, Ross. Always great to talk to you.
I will, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Dan.
And we don't have to have that question answered. Can Lamar win the big one? Like, can he win a playoff game here?
I know, but Dan, what's going to happen, right? If they lose Saturday night all offseason, can Lamar win in the snow? Can Lamar Jackson ever win a snow game in his whole career?
And this will be his first snow game. So hopefully he shows out here. Thank you, Ross. That's Ross Tucker, the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, and he'll be on the call Saturday night on Westwood 1 with the Ravens and the Buffalo Bills.